The planet of Callus Prime was supposed to be a quiet frontier world, a thriving agricultural colony under the control of the Galactic Union. Its pastoral beauty, with rolling hills and wide, peaceful skies, hid the tension that simmered just beneath the surface. A resistance group known only as the Liberators operated in the shadows, working tirelessly to expose the Union's true purpose. Their latest mission was critical. There had been rumors of an alien technology being hidden in a high-security Union facility on Callus Prime, and Rachel Vasquez, former Union officer turned rebel leader, knew it could be the key to stopping the Union's stranglehold over humanity. The moon was just beginning to set as Rachel and her team, Lena, a hacker, Jace, a weapons expert, and Victor, a former soldier, approached the facility. Clad in dark, sleek armor, they moved like shadows, blending into the night. The facility was a sprawling complex, nestled within a mountain range that made detection nearly impossible. But nothing ever escaped the watchful eye of the Liberators. Rachel surveyed the building through a pair of high-tech binoculars, her mind running through the plan one last time. "We're in, we're out," she said, voice steady, but her eyes betrayed the weight of the mission. "We grab the data, hit the vault, and get the hell out before they know what hit 'em." "Got it." Lena nodded, fingers already working at the console she carried, syncing with the facility's security systems. "Access in 30 seconds, she muttered. Victor's voice was low, his eyes scanning the horizon. "Union guards on the south entrance. Nothing unusual, but they'll start patrolling soon." Jace gripped his pulse rifle, his fingers tight around the trigger. "We take them down fast. Don't let anyone alert reinforcements." Rachel's heart pounded in her chest, but her focus never wavered. She had learned long ago to suppress the fear that came with leading a group into enemy territory. It wasn't fear that drove her, it was the memory of everything she had lost, her family, her comrades, the humanity that had been slowly crushed beneath the Union's rule. She was done waiting. Humanity had waited long enough. Lena's fingers flashed across the keyboard, bypassing the first layer of security. "I'm in," she said, a hint of excitement in her voice. They moved quickly, staying in the shadows as they slipped past guards and surveillance cameras, silently navigating the facility's inner halls. The deeper they went, the more it became apparent that something wasn't right. The air was thick with a sense of foreboding, and every step felt like they were being drawn into a web, but there was no turning back now. As they reached the vault, Lena set to work on the final lock. The minutes dragged by, the tension growing unbearable. Rachel could feel the hairs on the back of her neck standing on end. Something was wrong, and then the first alarm blared. A flash of red lights cut through the darkness. A voice echoed over the loudspeakers, sending a chill down Rachel's spine. "Unauthorized access detected. All personnel to Sector 7. Armed response activated." It was too late. The Liberators had been discovered. "Move now," Rachel shouted, her voice sharp with authority. They ran to the vault, Lena already pulling open the heavy steel door. Inside was a single, unmarked crate. As Lena ripped it open, her hands froze over the object inside, a sleek, metallic sphere, humming with a strange energy. "That's it," Rachel whispered, her heart racing. "The Eclipse Sphere." Before they could react, the sound of boots echoed down the hallway. Union guards, dozens of them. They had no time to escape. "Take it and go," Rachel ordered, but the mission had just become a deadly game of survival. The narrow corridors of the Union facility were filled with the sounds of boots pounding against metal floors. The Liberators barely had time to process the strange device they'd uncovered before alarms blared, and the oppressive weight of Union soldiers' presence began to close in. Rachel Vasquez knew they had moments, no more, before the facility became a death trap. "Grab the data, now," Rachel shouted, her eyes scanning the shadows for the nearest escape route. She didn't wait to see if Lena, Jace, and Victor were moving. She had already pivoted, leading them toward the nearest ventilation shaft. Lena, her face pale, cradled the eclipse sphere, her fingers trembling as she tucked the object into her bag. "This thing's alive," Lena whispered, her voice strained. "I can feel it, like it's calling to me." Rachel didn't answer, too focused on getting them out alive. They had what they came for, the sphere, and more importantly, the stolen data. But every step was getting harder as the Union forces were closing in. The walls seemed to press in around them, and the air was thick with the sound of sirens and boots. They reached the ventilation shaft, a narrow crawl space that led to a maintenance area far from the main complex. It was tight, uncomfortable, but it was the only option. "Go," Rachel barked, her hand on Lena's back, pushing her forward. Jace and Victor followed, with Rachel taking up the rear. They crawled in silence, sweat dripping from their brows. Each moment felt like a ticking clock, and every step in the shaft felt like it could be their last. Minutes passed before they finally emerged in the maintenance room. The hum of the facility's machinery was deafening. It was almost eerie, this near-silent lull before the storm. Lena didn't waste a moment. "I've got the files. There's a hidden subfolder, encrypted beyond anything I've seen before." She handed a small data pad to Rachel. "There's more going on here than we thought." Rachel grabbed the pad, scanning the files. What she saw made her stomach twist. The eclipse sphere wasn't just a weapon. It was a catalyst, a tool to awaken something deep within humanity. The data revealed a chilling history of human existence. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, humans were the dominant species in the galaxy, spreading across star systems, building empires, creating technologies far beyond anything the Union or the Voras had now. But something had gone wrong. A forgotten war with an ancient alien race, the Voras, had wiped out most of humanity's greatest minds. And then, the worst part of the revelation. The Voras had infiltrated the Union itself, orchestrating the suppression of human potential. They had been blocking humanity's powers for centuries, suppressing their telekinesis, psychic abilities, and advanced technologies by manipulating the genetic code. "What are they doing to us?" Lena whispered, her voice quivering. "They've been controlling us, hiding who we really are." Rachel's mind raced. The realization was overwhelming, but a spark of clarity ignited within her. The eclipse sphere, its purpose wasn't just to suppress humanity's powers. It was designed to erase their memories of what they could truly become, to prevent the next generation of humans from rising up and reclaiming their birthright as the galaxy's true rulers. Rachel closed her eyes for a moment, forcing her thoughts to align. This wasn't just a fight for freedom. This was the reclamation of humanity's soul. "We need to go back to Earth," Rachel said, her voice tight with determination. "The archive of origin is there. The full history of our people is hidden on Earth, locked away by the Union. We need to find it before the Voras do." Victor, ever the pragmatist, frowned. "Earth? The Union will have it locked down tighter than anything we've seen. You're talking about the most heavily guarded planet in the galaxy." Rachel met his gaze. "It's the only place left where the truth can be found. We'll need allies. We'll need to rally every human we can. If we fail, it's over for us." Jace clenched his fists, the weight of their mission settling in. "Then let's get started." But as they prepared to move out, a sudden explosion shook the building and the lights flickered. The Union had arrived, and they weren't going to let them leave alive. Rachel's heart raced. The true battle for humanity's freedom was only just beginning, and it was clear that the Union would stop at nothing to keep the truth buried. The war wasn't just a secret anymore. It was about to become humanity's fight for its very identity. The liberators didn't have time to savor their small victory or to recover from the harrowing escape. The Union forces were close on their heels, and the clock was ticking down faster than Rachel could process. Earth was their destination now, but getting there wasn't going to be easy. The Union's control over the planet was ironclad, and every system was rigged to keep humanity in line, especially anyone searching for the truth. Rachel's mind raced as the team packed their gear and prepared to leave Callus Prime behind. The Eclipse sphere was tucked safely in Lena's bag, its strange, humming energy still unsettling. It was clear that whatever it wasn't just a weapon, it was a key. But to what? The data they had stolen only deepened the mystery. Rachel, Lena's voice broke through her thoughts. I've been going through the files we got from the facility. There's something else. The Archive of Origin. It's not just on Earth. It's hidden, locked behind layers of Union encryption. And the Voras have placed agents on Earth for centuries. They've been waiting for this moment. Rachel took a deep breath, looking out over the rebel ship's controls. It won't matter. We're not running from them anymore. We're going to uncover the truth, no matter what it costs. Victor, who had been silently monitoring their course, spoke up. You sure about this? Earth is a powder keg right now. If we go in with no plan. We won't be going in alone, Rachel interrupted, her jaw set. We need help. There's a resistance cell I've worked with before, led by someone I trust. His name is Dante Korak. He's been fighting Union supply lines for years, but he doesn't know the whole story. Not yet. Jace raised an eyebrow. A resistance leader with no clue what's really going on. Sounds like a liability. Rachel's gaze hardened. Dante's been fighting the wrong enemy for too long. We'll show him the truth. Once he knows what's really at stake, he'll come around. Lena's eyes widened as she processed the data. If Dante doesn't know, then who else does? How deep does this go? Rachel's mind flickered back to the battle they had just narrowly escaped. The Voras have been manipulating everything from behind the scenes. They've made sure humanity has stayed in the dark, kept us divided. Earth is the last place the Union doesn't control fully. If we can get to the Archive of Origin, we can stop them, once and for all. The rebel ship punched through the atmosphere of Callus Prime, leaving the dying world behind. As they headed toward Earth, a sense of urgency filled the air. Every second counted. If the Voras were as entrenched as they feared, the mission wouldn't be as simple as just grabbing files from a dusty archive. They'd need more than just physical power. They'd need allies, truth, and trust. And most importantly, they would need the Eclipse sphere to unlock humanity's hidden potential. The journey would be dangerous, but the truth about the past was buried deep beneath Earth's surface. As the ship soared through the void, Rachel's thoughts drifted to the Archive of Origin. There was no way they could be the only ones searching for it, not with everything at stake. If the Vors knew about it, they would do everything in their power to destroy it. We'll need to be smart, Rachel said, her voice steady despite the growing weight of the mission. The Union's eyes are everywhere. We'll land in Europa first, gather intel, and make contact with Dante. The rest of the plan will fall into place once we know where we stand. The ship hummed, pushing forward into the unknown, as the distant glow of Earth's atmosphere loomed closer. A place that had once been the heart of humanity's greatest achievements. Now, it seemed like nothing more than a forgotten myth. Rachel clenched her fist. The battle for humanity's future was about to begin, and this time, there would be no hiding in the shadows. They were coming for the truth, and nothing would stop them. The ship broke through the dense clouds of Europa, a moon orbiting Jupiter, where Rachel had secretly arranged to meet Dante and his resistance cell. As they made their way toward the rendezvous point, Lena's voice broke through the silence. I've been doing some digging, Rachel. Earth's government has already started to move. There's talk of a new weapon, something far beyond anything the Union has used before. If the Voras get their hands on it, they could win this war before it even starts. Rachel's heart skipped. We need to find that weapon too, and Dante will help us. He has to. As the ship neared the surface, the future of humanity rested on their next move. The unseen battle had begun, and they were about to face enemies far more dangerous than they could ever imagine. The rebel ship touched down on Europa with a soft thud. the landing gear absorbing the impact as Rachel's team quickly disembarked. The harsh, frozen landscape of the moon stretched out before them, a stark contrast to the burning urgency that gripped her heart. She could feel the weight of their mission pressing down on her chest, a constant reminder of the stakes. Earth, the last stronghold of humanity's true potential, was within reach, but time was running out. The Voras were everywhere, and if they didn't act fast, the truth of humanity's forgotten power would slip away once more. Rachel led her team through the snowy wasteland, the cold biting at their skin as they made their way to the rendezvous point. Dante Korek was waiting for them, a tall, broad-shouldered man in his late 30s, wearing a weather jacket and a grim expression. His eyes, once filled with passion and determination, were now clouded with doubt and weariness. He had fought for years against the Union, but he still had no idea what lay behind the curtain of oppression. "Rachel," Dante said, his voice low and tired. "I didn't think I'd ever see you again." His gaze flickered to the others, his eyes lingering on the eclipse sphere strapped to Lena's side. "And I definitely didn't expect you to bring this." Rachel stepped forward, her tone firm. "You need to know the truth, Dante. About the Union, about what they've been hiding from all of us." Dante's jaw tightened. "I don't need you coming here and telling me how to fight my war, Rachel. I know the Union's evil, I've seen it firsthand, but I'm no fool. I'm not going to blindly follow you down some rabbit hole. If you've got something to say, say it." Rachel sighed, her breath visible in the frigid air. "I'm not asking you to follow me blindly. I'm asking you to open your eyes." She pulled out the data pad they had stolen from the Union facility and handed it to him. This is the truth. The Union, the Voras, everything we've been fighting, it's all connected. You've been fighting the wrong enemy, Dante." Dante took the data pad with a skeptical look, but soon became absorbed in the files. As his eyes moved across the information, his expression shifted from disbelief to confusion, and then to something darker, recognition. "The Voras," he muttered under his breath. "They're the ones behind all this." Rachel nodded. "They've been manipulating us for centuries, suppressing our true potential. The eclipse sphere is part of their plan to erase our memories, to keep us from remembering who we really are." Dante stepped back, his hands trembling as the weight of the revelation hit him. "No, this can't be true. If what you're saying is right, we've been slaves to these aliens for generations." Lena, who had been silent until now, spoke up. "It gets worse. The eclipse sphere isn't just a weapon, it's a genetic inhibitor. It's been used to block humanity's latent psychic and technological abilities. But we can unlock that power. We can fight back. We just need the Archive of Origin, the key to everything." Dante's gaze flickered with uncertainty, but there was something else beneath it, a spark of recognition, the glimmer of hope that humanity wasn't doomed after all. He had spent his life fighting for freedom, but now it seemed his real fight was just beginning. "Where do we find this archive?" he asked, his voice steady despite the storm of thoughts racing through his mind. Rachel met his gaze, her voice calm but filled with resolve. "It's on Earth. It's the last place the Union can't fully control. If we can get there, we can learn the truth about our origins and unlock the full extent of our powers." Dante looked out across the icy landscape, his expression hardening. "You're asking me to throw everything I've been fighting for into a whole new war. This isn't about freedom anymore, is it? It's about humanity taking its place at the top of the galaxy again." Rachel's eyes narrowed. "Exactly. It's time we stop being the underdogs. We need to fight back, not just for freedom, but for the future of our species. The Voras are terrified of what humanity could become, and that's why they've kept us weak. But no more. It's time to awaken what's ours." For a long moment, Dante was silent, weighing the words. The air was thick with the weight of their decision. Finally, he nodded. "I've been fighting this war for so long, Rachel, I've forgotten what it was really about. But you're right. If we don't do this, we're just pawns in someone else's game. I'll help you, but you need to understand. This is going to change everything. The galaxy won't be ready for what we're about to unleash. Rachel's heart pounded with the urgency of the moment. The pieces were finally falling into place, but they were still a long way from victory. The eclipse sphere was the key, but Earth was still a battleground, and the Voras wouldn't let them take it without a fight. We'll need all the allies we can get, Rachel said, a fierce determination in her voice. And we're going to need to be ready. The Voras won't back down. Neither will the Union, but we're done being shadows. This time, we take the fight to them. As the team prepared to depart, Dante joined them, and for the first time in a long while, Rachel felt a flicker of hope. But deep down, she knew that the true battle was just beginning. The war for humanity's future wasn't just about fighting aliens or oppressive governments. It was about reclaiming what had been taken from them. Their power, their history, their destiny. And they weren't going to stop until it was theirs again. The liberators stood on the edge of a precipice. Earth, their final battleground, loomed ahead. The rebel ship soared through the stars, leaving Europa behind as they made their way to the blue and green orb they had once called home. But the Earth they were returning to was no longer the world Rachel remembered. It was a fractured, controlled planet, its people suppressed under the weight of the Union's rule and the silent influence of the Voras. The old Earth, the one where humanity had been a proud and powerful species, was a distant memory. Rachel stared at the viewport, watching the planet grow larger with each passing second. Her mind raced with the implications. The Archive of Origin, the last remaining source of humanity's untapped power, was buried deep beneath Earth's surface, hidden in plain sight. But the journey to uncover it wouldn't be easy. The Union's presence was everywhere, and the Voras had eyes on the planet, watching, waiting. The battle for Earth was about to begin. As the ship descended into Earth's atmosphere, the cold, sterile hum of the engines filled the cabin. Dante, still silent and brooding, sat across from Rachel, his eyes scanning the data pad she had given him. The eclipse sphere pulsed softly in Lena's bag, an unsettling reminder of the power it contained. We're landing near New Hope, a region untouched by the Union's main forces, Rachel said, breaking the silence. Dante, you know the terrain better than anyone. We'll need to move fast. Dante looked up, his expression grim. I know the region, but it's not as safe as you think. The Union's forces have been reinforcing their strongholds across the planet. There are people, good people, fighting back, but they're spread thin. If we're going to make it to the archive, we'll need more than just a few allies. Then we'll get more, Rachel replied, her voice firm. We'll unite them. The truth of our past is the rallying cry they need. Once they see what we're really capable of, they'll join us. Lena, who had been quiet as well, chimed in. We'll also need to crack the Union surveillance grid. Earth's under constant watch. The Voras have already placed their agents within key government positions. It's not just the Union we'll have to worry about. Victor, who had been studying the ship's navigation system, looked up. We'll need a plan to get in and out quickly. If the Voras catch wind of what we're doing, we're dead before we even reach the archive. Rachel nodded, her mind already working through the possibilities. We'll hit the New Hope resistance first. They've been fighting the Union's strongholds for years. They know the lay of the land and have a network of safe houses. We'll gather intel and rally them to our cause. As the ship descended toward Earth, Rachel's thoughts returned to the eclipse sphere. It was more than a weapon, it was a symbol. A symbol of everything humanity had lost. The Voras had suppressed them for centuries, keeping them from awakening the latent abilities that once made them rulers of the stars. But now, Rachel was determined to change that. The eclipse sphere would unlock humanity's true potential. The fight was no longer about survival, it was about reclaiming their birthright. The ship touched down in a remote part of the New Hope region, its engines humming to a stop as Rachel stood up, preparing to lead her team into the unknown. The air was thick with the scent of Earth and the faintest hint of smoke, evidence of the ongoing skirmishes between the Union and the Resistance. Dante led the way, his boots crunching softly on the dry ground. We'll meet with the local cell leader, Cora Wells. She's one of the most resourceful leaders in the region. If anyone knows how to get us to the archive, it's her. As they moved deeper into the heart of New Hope, Rachel couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The air was heavy, and the silence that hung over the landscape felt unnatural. The Voras had spies everywhere. She knew it wasn't just the Union they had to watch out for. The Voras had infiltrated every layer of society, planting their agents in key positions, pulling the strings from behind the scenes. "We don't have much time," Rachel said, her voice tense. "If we're going to find the archive, we need to move fast. Earth's not the same as it once was. We don't know who we can trust." Victor's hand tightened on his weapon. "We'll be ready for whatever comes." As they neared a small hidden compound, the door opened slowly. Cora Wells stood there, her eyes scanning the group, sizing them up. The tension in the air was palpable. "We've been expecting you," Cora said, her voice steady. "But we didn't think you'd bring the eclipse sphere with you. This is bigger than I thought." Rachel took a deep breath. "We don't have time for small talk. The Voras are here, and we need to get to the Archive of Origin before they do." Cora nodded, her face hardening. "Then we better move quickly. The Voras aren't the only threat we face. There are people on Earth who would sell their own mothers to stay in power. If we're going to win, we need to unite everyone, and we need to do it fast." Rachel felt a chill settle in her chest. The battle for Earth was no longer just a fight for survival, it was a war for humanity's future. The enemy was everywhere, and the Voras were closing in. They had only one chance to win, and they couldn't afford to fail. The New Hope compound was quieter than Rachel had expected. Cora Wells led the group into a hidden underground bunker, its walls lined with maps, old communications equipment, and weaponry. The Resistance had clearly made this place a fortress, but Rachel could feel the underlying tension in the air. Every moment they spent on Earth brought them closer to an inevitable confrontation with the Voras, whose agents were likely scattered among them, watching their every move. Cora turned to face Rachel, her gaze sharp and calculating. "You've come for the archive, but getting to it won't be easy. The Union has been tightening its grip on Earth for decades. And the Voras. They've embedded themselves in the highest echelons of government and military. We'll have to move carefully." Rachel nodded, her mind already working through the options. She could feel the urgency of the situation tightening around her like a vice. The eclipse sphere was their key to unlocking humanity's dormant power, and the Archive of Origin was the only place that could reveal its true potential. But Earth was not the same planet she remembered. The Voras had already been here for centuries, manipulating the course of history. Their influence ran deep, and their agents were everywhere. "We don't have the luxury of time," Rachel said, her voice firm. "The Voras know we're here. We need to move faster than they can react." Cora considered this for a moment before speaking. "There's a secure Union facility in Atlas City, not far from here. They've been holding onto something they call the Genesis files, classified records that could be connected to the archive. If we can get our hands on those files, we might be able to trace the path to the archive." Lena stepped forward, her brow furrowing. "You're talking about breaching one of the most heavily fortified Union facilities on Earth. That sounds like a suicide mission." "It is," Dante said, his voice steady, "but it's the only option we have. The Genesis files are our best shot at locating the archive before the Voras can stop us. If we don't act now, we'll be out of time." Rachel met Dante's gaze, the weight of their decision hanging heavily between them. They had come to Earth to uncover the truth, but each step brought them closer to a deadly confrontation. The Voras had controlled humanity for far too long, and now they would stop at nothing to keep humanity from rising again. We'll need a distraction, Victor said, his voice cutting through the tension in the room. Something big enough to pull attention away from the Atlas City facility while we get in and out. Cora's lips curled into a wry smile. I've got just the thing. The Union's communications grid is fragile. There are rumors of a weapons convoy in the Vallis region, and we can create a diversion by sabotaging their supply lines. If we hit them where it hurts, the Union will pull their forces back from the city, giving you the opening you need. Rachel's mind raced. It was a bold plan, but it was their best chance. The Union would have no idea what was coming. They could cripple the enemy's supply lines, draw their forces away, and make their move on Atlas City. The clock was ticking, and every second they wasted gave the Voras more time to regroup. Then let's get to work, Rachel said, determination in her eyes. We hit them hard and fast, gather the Genesis files, and get out before they even know we were there. After that, we go straight to the Archive of Origin. Victor grinned, already plotting their course. I'll have the team ready in 30 minutes. We'll move like shadows. Rachel turned to Dante, her expression serious. This isn't just about fighting for Earth anymore, Dante. It's about humanity's future. We can't afford to lose this war. Dante's eyes narrowed. I didn't join the resistance to run and hide, Rachel. I joined to fight. If this is the fight we're facing, then I'm with you. As the team prepared for their next move, the stakes became even clearer. They weren't just fighting for Earth. They were fighting to reclaim humanity's place in the galaxy. The Voras had controlled humanity's destiny for far too long, but their time was running out. The Eclipse Sphere would unlock powers far beyond anything the Union had ever imagined, and once they had the Genesis files, they would be one step closer to the truth. The road ahead was treacherous, and the enemies they faced were ruthless. But Rachel knew one thing with absolute certainty: the unseen battle was coming to a head, and this time, humanity wasn't going to lose. Outside, the cold winds of Earth's fractured landscapes howled as the team prepared for the next phase of their mission. Their eyes were set on the future, and every step forward would bring them closer to either victory or oblivion. The war for humanity's freedom had only just begun. The night was thick with tension as Rachel and her team made their way through the wilderness surrounding New Hope. The cold wind whipped across the barren landscape, but their focus was razor-sharp. Every movement felt like it could be the last. Their mission to breach the Union facility in Atlas City was a dangerous one, but it was the only chance they had to uncover the Genesis files, the key to unlocking the truth about the Archive of Origin and humanity's forgotten powers. The diversion that Cora and her resistance network had orchestrated was already in motion. A convoy carrying critical Union supplies had been rerouted to a remote location, where they were preparing to sabotage it. The Union's attention would be diverted to the chaos, giving Rachel's team the opening they needed. Victor, ever the strategist, moved ahead of the group, his hand resting on his weapon as he scanned the terrain. "We're getting close," he whispered. "This is the point of no return. Once we're in the facility, we move fast. No mistakes." Dante, who had been unusually quiet, adjusted his gear and nodded. "I've seen the inside of Atlas City before. It's a fortress, but there's a ventilation shaft leading to the core. If we're going to get in undetected, that's our best option. Cora's team has already planted the explosives along the outer wall. When the diversion hits, we'll have about 15 minutes before the alarm goes off." Rachel gripped the handle of her pulse rifle and checked her communicator. It was time. The Union facility was only a few clicks away, nestled in the heart of a sprawling industrial complex. The plan was simple: infiltrate, retrieve the Genesis files, and get out before anyone knew they had been there. But Rachel couldn't shake the feeling that things weren't as straightforward as they seemed. The Voras had a way of twisting everything they touched, and they would stop at nothing to prevent humanity from discovering its true potential. "We've been waiting for this moment for years," Rachel said, her voice low but filled with determination. "Once we get those files, everything changes. We can't afford to fail." Lena, who had been scanning the surroundings with a wary eye, nodded. "We won't, but we need to be prepared for the unexpected. The Voras won't let us get close without a fight. We need to assume that their agents are already in the facility, waiting for us." The team moved in sync, their footsteps muffled by the thick snow beneath them. As they neared the entrance to the facility, the air grew colder, the stark silence of the night pressing down on them. Victor checked his wrist device, a small red light flashing, signaling the final moments of their approach. Then, without warning, a loud explosion shook the ground beneath them. The distant sound of chaos erupted from the direction of the convoy, the perfect distraction. "Move," Rachel barked. They sprinted toward the ventilation shaft, using the cover of the explosion's shockwave to mask their entry. The facility loomed ahead, its high-tech security measures dimly illuminated by the flickering lights overhead. They ducked into the shadows, avoiding the roaming patrols, as they made their way through the outer perimeter. Inside, the air was thick with the metallic scent of the Union's technology. Rachel felt a pang of anger at the sight of the place. These cold walls had been built to suppress humanity, to keep them shackled under the Voras' thumb. But that was about to change. They were no longer the hunted. They were the hunters. Cora's intel had been spot on. The ventilation shaft led them deep into the facility, bypassing the main security systems. They emerged in a corridor lined with heavy doors. Rachel glanced at the map on her datapad, pinpointing the location of the Genesis files. They were stored in the deepest vault, heavily guarded, but they were close. The adrenaline surged through her veins. 5 minutes, Victor said, eyes scanning for movement. "The diversion won't last forever. We have to get those files and get out." The deeper they went, the more oppressive the silence became. Rachel's heart pounded in her chest. She could feel the weight of the mission bearing down on her. This wasn't just a fight for survival. It was the war for humanity's future. The final door to the vault loomed ahead. Cora's sabotage had made this moment possible, but Rachel knew that once they opened it, all hell would break loose. "Ready," she whispered, her voice steady despite the chaos swirling in her mind. Dante gave a tight nod. "Always." Victor moved to disable the lock. The seconds stretched out like hours. The door clicked open, and Rachel's breath caught in her throat as the dim light inside illuminated the prize they had come for, the Genesis files. But just as she stepped forward, a chill crept down her spine. A low, almost imperceptible sound echoed through the facility. Footsteps, too quiet, too deliberate. The Voras had arrived. Rachel's heart skipped a beat. They weren't just fighting the Union anymore. The Voras were here, and the real battle had only just begun. "Move," she snapped, pulling the files from the vault. "We're not alone." The weight of the Genesis files felt heavier than it should have. Rachel gripped them tightly, the stark realization that the Voras were now closing and hitting her like a wave. They weren't just fighting the Union anymore. They were fighting against the hidden hand that had been controlling humanity's fate for centuries. The Voras had known they were coming. The trap had been set. Victor was already moving, pulling Rachel and the others toward the exit. "This way," he barked, leading them down the corridor. His voice was steady, but his eyes were sharp with calculation. "We need to get out now. We've got what we came for. No more risks." Dante, who had been silent until now, stepped forward, eyes scanning the darkness. "The Voras won't let us leave without a fight. We need to take them out before they can call reinforcements." Rachel's pulse quickened as she turned, hearing the unmistakable sound of footsteps, too many, too fast, coming from the opposite direction. The Voras had infiltrated the facility, and now they were closing in on the team from both sides. The walls of the facility seemed to close in on her, each second stretching longer than the last. "Lena," Rachel said, voice low but urgent, "get to the control room. Shut down the main power grid. We can't afford to leave any trace."